Now, violence has become a far too frequent aspect of life here in America. Many of the men and women in law enforcement in North Dakota say the conversation in their departments and agencies is changing from if a mass tragedy happens to when it happens. As we begin our Open for Discussion Violence Around Us series, Daniela Hurtado breaks down how communities and officers have adapted and whether we'll ever be fully prepared.
Our flag symbolizes many things like valor, vigilance, and perseverance. The nation's foundation is built on fundamentals seen daily and after tragedies that plague our societies.
We don't know how many people have been hurt.
But communities changing can't be ignored.
The world's changing. I'm 41 years old, and
what brought us to Orlando?
20, 30 years ago, you didn't have all of this stuff.
Law enforcement is seeing shifts in society firsthand.
Things are getting more violent, more scary. Things are happening that you just really didn't think of before.
Officers have had to adapt.
New tactics are deployed by bad people, so we have to change our tactics.
Annual active shooter and assailant trainings for officers and deputies across the state is the new normal. In fact, it was implemented years ago. Recently, agencies in our area began ALICE training with schools.
Can I say that we're ever going to be 100% prepared? No, but what I can say is that we're prepared the best to react the best we can under any situation thrown in front of us.
Similar to the situation first responders walked into on April 1st in Mandan, when they found the scene of a quadruple homicide. It's something officers train for and brace for their entire careers. But hope it never happens.
It's something that every law enforcement officer fears.
A feeling shared by many across the state.
It saddens me because nowadays you just got people going around shooting kids, shooting people.
Studies show that in America, mass shootings are becoming deadlier. Some of the worst by the numbers. 58 people killed during a concert in Las Vegas in 2017. A year prior, 49 killed at Pulse nightclub in Orlando. In 2007, 32 dead at Virginia Tech. 26 in Sutherland Springs 10 years after, and 26 murdered at Sandy Hook in 2012.
Hard to keep track of all of them.
A sad reality. Many remember Columbine as the incident that brought mass shootings to the forefront.
It seemed like after that happened, it just took off. And it was a slow progression, but now we're at where we are today.
The Dayton and El Paso shootings are some of the most recent, where dozens were murdered. Communities grasping onto hope.
Did not deserve to lose their life. They had children.
But wondering how it happened in their town.
Anything can happen at any time, at any place, anywhere in this world, anywhere in this country, anywhere in this state. So don't take it for granted just because we're here, we haven't had something happen, that nothing is going to happen.
Situations some say need solutions.
Nothing we could do to stop it until we get better security measures or better help to help them out and get them the stuff that they need.
As flags go half-staff once more out of respect for another tragedy impacting our society, people wonder what will make it stop. In Bismarck, I'm Daniela Hurtado for Your News Leader.
Tonight we address the policies and legislation aimed at curbing the role guns play in large-scale crimes.
When a mass shooting takes place, there are often calls for new federal regulations, and some states have enacted rules surrounding firearms, sometimes in response to those tragedies. Megan Hoffman takes a look at the Second Amendment in its role in gun control.
There are few things that can divide opinions as quickly as the sound of a gunshot, especially when it comes to mass shootings.
We believe in the Second Amendment, but we believe the Second Amendment can sit comfortably alongside common sense gun laws.
Those who identify themselves as advocates for the Second Amendment have a different view.
It turns due process on its head. It removes constitutional protections that every U.S. citizen is afforded under the Constitution.
What the Second Amendment means is a constant debate. After dozens of Supreme Court rulings, many still have differing views on what the Constitution provides U.S. citizens and how much guns can or can't be regulated. There are dozens of laws about who can own a gun, how many rounds, and how quickly the ammunition can be discharged, and where you can carry them.
There are so many ways that they can come and take your guns without due process.
Gun rallies like this are working against more regulation, like red flag laws. Those would allow law enforcement or family members to petition courts to have guns temporarily taken away from someone who could be a danger to themselves or someone else.
These red flag laws, while they're well-intentioned in the concept, are a very bad idea from a constitutional perspective and a practical perspective.
While groups like Moms Demand Action hold their own events fighting for that type of law.
We think that it's reasonable that families and law enforcement should, through a rigorous due process, be able to temporarily take away someone's guns or take away their access to guns until they are deemed to be safe again.
The Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives Agency is responsible for enforcing both state and federal gun laws. ATF agents in North Dakota say they've seen every type of firearm you can think of, but handguns are the most common. And when it comes to shootings, they say handguns are used the most. That lines up with national data as well. 2018 statistics from the FBI show of the 14,000 plus homicides, more than 10,000 involved firearms, with 6,600 being handgun related. The ATF says they also see gun modifications, which can make a firearm shorter and easier to conceal.
Modifying these guns without the proper permits, they're not licensing them properly, they're not paying their tax stamps, and they're cutting the barrels off, and they become very short. And then with that, it makes it able to better conceal them and then use them in commission of crimes such as, shooting at law enforcement or robbing each other.
After shootings, people also say background checks need to be strengthened. The Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act of 1993 mandates background checks on firearm purchasers. Between November 1998 and December 2018, more than 304 million transactions have been processed by the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, according to the FBI. For unlicensed sellers, the checks aren't required.
Some thieves target firearms because they know that it's an easy, quick sale. A lot of times they can sell them or trade them for drugs, or they can just sell them to other people very quickly.
There's one thing most do agree on. A May Quinnipiac poll showed 94% of those surveyed in support of stricter background checks. A July poll from NPR, PBS NewsHour, and Marist showed 89% support. But there's no answer that satisfies everyone. I'm Megan Hoffman reporting for your news leader.
State legislators here introduced a red flag bill this year, but the House resoundingly voted it down. But 17 states and the District of Columbia have enacted some form of a red flag law.
Well, as for stricter background checks, a bill passed in the U.S. House in February, but has not yet been introduced in the Senate.
Experts say they believe mental health may have played a role in some of the violent attacks across the country. Until this year, North Dakota had not tracked the correlation between mental health and violence. Jordan Verdadero is here to tell us how public health professionals are now tracking such information. Jordan?
There are law enforcement agencies, for example, the State Attorney General's office, that track numbers of violent deaths, weapons used, and other statistics in its crime and homicide reports. But when it comes to actually linking information to get the whole story and why things happened, that didn't exist until the CDC's National Violent Death Reporting System. In the United States, 7 people per hour die of violent death, according to the CDC. In 2017, more than 19,500 people died by homicide, and 47,000 people died by suicide. North Dakota has witnessed its share of violent deaths too. This public health problem led to the CDC creating the National Death Reporting System to track all types of violent deaths throughout the different states.
This isn't a new program. It actually existed back in 2002, and North Dakota has always had interest in applying for this program or for this funding to run this program, but we didn't have the resources available or staff available.
Pink says North Dakota was one of 10 states that wasn't a part of the reporting system. Now all 50 states are. It includes data elements that provide context about violent deaths such as relationship problems, mental health problems and treatment, toxicology results, and life stressors. It also provides information about the incidents like the weapons used, characteristics of suspects, and locations where they happened.
And with that, we are collecting information on specific types of deaths. And those deaths are suicides, homicides, unintentional firearm deaths, unknown intent, legal intervention, and terrorism.
The goal is to combine information from all frontline investigators in a systematic manner to provide a complete picture.
The North Dakota Violent Death Reporting System will help inform leadership, policymakers, program planners on the trends and patterns that we're seeing in regards to violent deaths. It will help educate our communities.
According to the CDC, this is the only state-based surveillance system that pulls data on violent deaths and their circumstances from multiple sources into one anonymous database. The DOH started officially collecting data in the state on January 1st of this year, and the information so far is very preliminary. But if you feel like someone could pose a threat to the community, the North Dakota Safety Council offers training for violence prevention.
Since 1999, the amount of attacks in schools, churches, and the workplace have all increased at about the same pace. So we offer training for those three areas, specifically about what they can do to mitigate their risk that something happens in their church, their workplace, or their school.
NDSC says it wants individuals to practice an emergency response plan and to be prepared in your current environment. And there could be a way to pick up on warning signs, like something that causes a major impact on a life.
Part of the awareness is when we have a coworker or we have an employee that's going through a bad divorce, a custody battle, a home foreclosure, something like that that's going to have a major impact on them or their family. What can we offer as an employer to help them through that process and recognize that this is a very stressful time for them?
Mosman says it's important to understand North Dakota has changed. Mosman says you can lower your risk at the front end through prevention and make sure there is a plan in place in case violence knocks at your door. We also spoke to a mental health professional who addresses issues in the country and in our state.
There's a decline in community engagement and family connections. And so that really are the root causes, we believe, in the violence that we experience here in the United States.
Now tonight, a look at how what you see or play online can impact real-life interactions. Experts say what people expose themselves to online has the potential for detrimental side effects. Emmeline Ivy reports.
It's the age of electronic technology. Psychiatrists say more and more people are engaging in online gaming and social media.
It's most of my day. Every time that I have like a break or something during school, I go on them and just check everything.
At least probably about 15 hours average.
Over time, those hours can translate into more than just gaming or scrolling through posts online. Psychiatrist Kevin Damon says what we do and how we interact online can affect our headspace and actions in real life.
I think it's made our generation sick a lot of the times because we don't understand how to be ourselves anymore. And that has made a lot of impacts on where we go, what we do, and how we live our lives.
Go onto Instagram and post it.
Experts say time online can evoke potentially dangerous and violent habits among users.
The more violence that you watch, the more violence you participate, the more violence you're going to be. There's over 5,000 studies out there. They're very, very clear. The more violence that you watch, the more violent you'll become.
While some gamers believe there might not be any link between violent video games and their tendencies,
Absolutely not. No. No, there's no way. It doesn't influence me whatsoever. I get more competitive, I guess.
Dr. Damon says there's a connection.
You take a look at statistics, there's been about a 500% increase in the amount of assaultive behaviors over the last 30 years. That's right about the same time that violent video games have come out. So the amount of violence that we watch is directly correlated with the amount of violence that we do.
Dr. Damon says when you do something for hours at a time, you begin to model that. The best way to combat this is to monitor what you expose yourself to online.